In other news today, the Judicial Service Commission now due to interview 4 people for the position of Chief Justice after President Cyril Ramaphosa said he was sending them the names of 4 judges for the post. They're the Deputy Chief Justice, Raymond Zondo, the Constitutional Court Judge, Mbyuyiseli Madlanga, the President of the Supreme Court of Appeal, Judge Mandisa Maya, and the North Gauteng High Court Judge, Dunstan Mlambo. We're joined now by Dan Mafora from the Council for the Advancement of the South African Constitution at Casac. Dan, good afternoon to you. I mean, when you consider the names that were considered for this position, I suppose it's no surprise these were the 4 candidates who the President is looking at.
Good afternoon, Stephen. Thank you for having me. Look, I think we had all seen, the initial list of the candidates whose nominations met the panel's requirements, and it was clear that there were 4 front runners for this position, and it came as no surprise that these were the names that the President has sent to the JSC.
The Judicial Service Commission process, we've never actually had this before. 4 interviews for this position in public. Do you think that could be quite difficult? We've seen the Judicial Service Commission accused of politicking in the past.
Absolutely. I think it is going to be interesting because what would happen in the past is the President would announce, one candidate or one name, and that person would be interviewed by the JSC. I think it's going to be interesting now, given how the 2 previous sessions of the JSC interviews have gone. I think we're likely to have, a bit more robust questioning this time of these candidates in order to assess their suitability for the position. But I also think it's very interesting that, the President has chosen to forward 4 names instead of 2 or 1, as one would have expected him to have narrowed down those names that he received from the panel. And so it is the first time that this has happened, and it is proving to be an interesting development.
There's another process which happens all at the same time, which is that, as I understand it, the leaders of the political parties represented in Parliament are consulted as well. Now, this is a process in the past, if I remember, some of the opposition parties might have, certainly I think the DA did, might have opposed the nomination of then Judge Mbyuyiseli for the position of Chief Justice. But the President can just ignore them, can't he?
Absolutely. So the appointment of the Chief Justice is absolutely discretionary and up to the President. The roles that the leaders of the NA and the JSC play here is largely advisory, and the President can always ignore whatever issues or advice he receives from them and choose his preferred judge. But it does seem, I think, that the President hasn't made up his mind, and that is why he has chosen to forward all 4 names, both to the NA and to the JSC.
Now, there's going to be an interesting wrinkle here, Dan. I'm going to try and talk myself through the politics on this because it gets a bit complicated. My understanding is that the leader of the EFF, Julius Malema, who of course is one of the people who would be consulted in this process, has had matters before Judge Dunstan Mlambo, and they haven't gone his way. He also sits on the Judicial Service Commission. If I'm right, he gets 2 chances to object.
Well, that is the beauty of the design of our judicial appointment system, Stephen. I don't think it had ever occurred to the drafters of the Constitution that such a situation would arise, but obviously it has now. And as you're correctly saying, he has 2 chances notionally to object to the appointment of any of the judges. But one would assume that the decision of the parties in the NA would be a collective decision, whereas where Mr. Malema's own, grudges or concerns about some of these judges may not be shared by everyone else in his party. And so there is that possibility, but there's also the possibility that it might not arise at all.
This is all taking a very long time, Dan. I don't need to tell you that. We have an acting Chief Justice, the Deputy Chief Justice, Raymond Zondo. There's a report about something. I forget what it's about, but there's a report that he's supposed to be writing at the moment as well. Maybe you can remember. Are we in a position where we need to get this process moving? Well, a little bit more quickly. Do we need to get the JSC going now? Come on, let's see if we can get a Chief Justice by the end of the year.
You're absolutely correct. I think, firstly, it's unprecedented that we haven't had a Chief Justice or a vacancy in the Chief Justice's office for this long. Usually what happens is the process begins before the retirement of the incumbent, but obviously that didn't happen in this case. But another question arises as to what took the president so long. If the same names that were submitted to him were the same names that he submitted to the JSC. It is taking quite a long time, and who knows when the JSC will be convened. We have no idea. And so there's not much that the president can do. He has left it in the hands of the JSC now, and it's up to them to make this process to speed it up a bit more.
Dan Mafora, thanks very much indeed from Casac, the Council for the Advancement of the South African Constitution.